right, chapter 217, The Prisoner in the Subterranean. Oh, we're going to go back to the Resurrection Man's house and find out who's down in his dungeon. I really do think it's the old hag. It would explain why she didn't show up to meet with Catherine. Okay, we'll see if I'm right. It was on the same morning when Adeline came to London in the manner just described that Anthony Tidkins emerged from his dwelling, hastened up the dark alley, and entered the ground floor of the building. He was not, however, alone. Mr. Banks, who had been breakfasting with him, followed close behind. "Light the darky, old fellow," said the Resurrection Man when they were both in the back room, "while I raise the trap. We must bring matters to an end somehow or another this morning." "I hope so," returned Banks. "It isn't very probable that the poor old weasel will have pluck enough to hold out much longer. Why, it must be near upon 10 days that she's been here." That's a sign I might be right. "I dare say it is," observed the Resurrection Man coolly, "but she'll never stir out till she gives us the information we want. It would be worth a pretty penny to us. The young girl was evidently dying to know about her parents the night she met the old woman, and she can get money from her friends, she said so." "Well," returned Banks, "let us hope that the old woman has thought better on it by this time and will make a clean buzzin' of it. It would be a great pity and very useless crime if we was obliged to knock the sinful old weasel on the head after all. Her corpse would fetch nothing at the surgeon's." "Don't be afraid," said Tidkins. "It won't come to that. She was half inclined to tell everything last night when I visited her as usual. But come along and let's see how she is disposed this morning." The Resurrection Man descended the stone staircase, followed by Banks, who carried the light. In a few moments, they entered the vault where their prisoner was confined, and that prisoner was the vile hag of Golden Lane. A lamp burned feebly upon the table in the subterranean, and the old woman was already up and dressed when the two men made their appearance. She was sitting in a chair, dolefully rocking herself to and fro, and uttering low moans as she pondered upon her condition and the terms on which she might obtain her release. When the Resurrection Man and Banks entered the subterranean, she turned a hasty glance towards them, and then continued to rock and moan as before. The two men seated themselves on the side of the bed. "Well," said the Resurrection Man, "have you made up your mind, old woman? Because me and my friend Banks are pretty tired of this delay, and if the solitary system won't do, why, we must try what good can be effected by starvation." "Alack, I've always thought myself bad enough," said the old hag, "but you are a very devil." "Ah, and you shall find this place hell too, if you go on humbugging me much longer," returned the Resurrection Man savagely. "You have only got yourself to thank for all this trouble that you're in. If you had behaved in a straightforward manner, all would have gone on right. My friend Banks here can tell you the same. But you tried to get the upper hand of me through the business." "No," murmured the hag, still rocking herself. "But I say yes," answered the Resurrection Man. "In the first place, you would tell me nothing about Catherine Wilmot's parentage. You kept it all close to yourself. I suspect you. I even told you so. I declared that if I caught you out in any of your tricks, I would hang you up to your own bedpost as readily as I would wring the neck of your old cat. And I will keep my word yet if you refuse to give me the information I require." "What will become of me?" moaned the old hag. "Alack, alack!" "You'll very soon find out," answered Tidkins. "But I just want to prove to you that I am right in all I am doing with regard to you. In the first place, you could speak to Catherine alone. That didn't look well. You said I might be a witness at a distance or when the money was paid, but I knew that all to be humbug. However, I let you have your way at the beginning, if it was only to see how the young girl would receive you. Well, friend Banks drives us to Hounslow. We set off to the farm. We meet Catherine and another young lady, and this Miss Monroe throws cold water on the whole business. Still, you won't speak before witnesses. We go back to the inn at Hounslow. We concoct the note to Kate, and friend Banks undertakes to deliver it, and it seems he knew something of her. He managed to give it to her, and you, old woman, go off to meet her at 7. Now, did you think I was so precious green as not to take advantage of the opportunity? Not I. I went after you. I crept round behind the fences near where you and Catherine met each other, and I heard every word that passed between you." "Alack, alack!" moaned the old woman. "Yes, I heard everything," continued the Resurrection Man, "enough to prove to me that the young girl would give half her fortune to learn the truth concerning her father and mother. I also understood pretty well that there is the name of Markham in the case, and I was struck by the manner in which you urged her to purchase your secret, when she informed you that Richard Markham, the Markham whom I know and hate, had been made a great lord. All you said in respect to the conditions on which your secret was to be sold didn't astonish me at all. It only confirmed me in the conviction that you had intended throughout to gammon me. You meant to make use of me as a tool to find out Catherine's address, and then to reserve for your own particular plucking the pigeon whose hiding place I had detected. The man who was with me this morning is a bad one, you said. He is avaricious and desires to turn my knowledge of this secret to good account. And so I did, you old harridan, and so I mean to do. He is a desperate man, and I dare not offend him, you went on. Egad, you found out that you spoke pretty truly. He wants money, and money he must have. True again, and money I will have too. The girl tells you she is rich and anxious to purchase the secret, and when she asks you how much will satisfy me, you coolly tell her 100 pounds. 100 devils, and then in your gammoning, sniveling way, you demand of her the wherewith to make your few remaining days happy. Alas, I'm a poor soul, murmured the horrible crone, shaking her head. Do with me what you will, kill me at once. And what the devil good would your carcass be to us? Exclaimed the Resurrection Man. A workhouse coffin would be thrown away on it, added Mr. Banks. So it would, Ned, returned Tidkins. But I'll just finish what I have to say to the old woman, and will then go to the point. I was so disgusted and in such an infernal rage when I heard you going on in such a rascally manner, selling me and taking care of yourself, that I determined at one time to come down from behind the palings and force you to tell Catherine Wilmot on the spot all you knew about her parents, and then trust to her generosity. And as the night had turned dark, I had moved away from the spot and was coming towards you along the path when you heard the rustling of my cloak. At that instant, another idea struck me. I resolved to bring you here and get the secret out of you. I therefore crept softly back behind the fence. Then you went on with a deal more nonsense, all of which I heard, as well as the rest. I was now determined to punish you, so I got back to the inn before you, arranged it all with Banks, and we had you up to London and safely lodged here in this pleasant little place that very night. Now tell me the truth, old woman. Don't you deserve it all? Lack-a-day, crooned the harridan. She does indeed deserve it, Tony, said Banks, shaking his head with that solemnity which he had affected so long and at length to use it mechanically. She's as gammoning an old sorry, I'm stumbling over my own tongue today. She's as gammoning an old vessel as ever stood a chance of making an ugly carcass to be burnt in the bone house by my friend Jones the gravedigger. Now, by Satan, suddenly said the Resurrection Man, starting up and laying his iron hand on the hag's shoulder so as to prevent her from rocking to and fro any longer. If you don't give up this infernal croaking and moaning, I'll invent some torture to make you tractable. Speak, old wretch, he shouted in her ears as he shook her violently. Will you tell us the secret about Catherine Wilmot, or will you not? Not now, cried the hag. Another time. I will not wait another hour, said the Resurrection Man, but I'll put you to some torture. What shall we do to her, Banks? Screw her cussed carcass down in one of my coffins for an hour or so, answered the undertaker. No, that won't do, said the Resurrection Man. I always punishes my children that way, observed Banks, and I find it very salutary example. I know what we'll do, exclaimed Tidkins. They say that Dick Turpin used to put an old woman on the fire to make them tell where their money was. Suppose we serve this wretched hag out in the same way. I'm quite agreeable, returned Banks with as much complacence as if a party of pleasure had been proposed to him. I believe you've got a brazier. Yes, up in the front room, ground floor, where all the resurrection tools are kept, answered Tidkins. You go and fetch it. Bring plenty of coal and wood and the bellows, and we'll precious soon make the old woman speak out. The undertaker departed to execute this commission, and Tidkins again reasoned with the hag. But all he could get out of her was a moaning exclamation, and as soon as he withdrew his hand from her shoulder, she began rocking backwards and forwards as before. It suddenly struck the Resurrection Man that she was actually losing her senses through the rigors of confinement, and he became alarmed, not on her account, but for the secret which he wished to extort from her. As this idea flashed to his mind, he cast a rapid glance toward the old woman and surprised her as she herself was scrutinizing his countenance with the most intense interest, while she was all the time pretending to be listlessly rocking herself. Another gag, said Tidkins. What do you take me for? You think that I am such a miserable fool as to be deluded by your tricks? Not I, indeed. Ah, you would affect madness, would you? Why, you really went mad through captivity in this place? I would knock you on the head at once, for fear that if you were let loose, you might preach in your ravings about my designs concerning Kate Wilmot. But if you tell me in your sober senses all that I want to know, I'll give you your freedom in 12 hours, because I am very well aware that you would not, when in possession of your reason, attract attention to your own ways of life by betraying mine. And if I tell you all I know, said the hag, seeing that her new design was detected and that it was useless to persist in it, if I tell you all I know, why will you not allow me to go home at once? Because you came here in the night, and you shall go away in the night. Because you arrived blindfolded, and you shall depart blindfolded, replied the Resurrection Man sternly. Do you think that I would let an old treacherous hag like you discover the whereabouts of this house? Why, you have no more idea at present whether you're in St. Giles's or the Mint, Clerkenwell or Shoreditch, Bond Street or Rosemary Lane, and I don't intend you ever to be any wiser. But here comes Banks with the brazier. The undertaker made his appearance laden with the articles for which he had been sent. The Resurrection Man laid the wood and coals in the brazier and applied a match. In a few moments there was a bright blaze which he fanned by means of the bellows. "It'll be a good fire in a minute or two," said Tidkins coolly. "Almost as good as Jones makes in the bone house where he burns the blessed carcasses of venerable defuncts," returned Mr. Banks. "Don't blow any more, Mr. Tidkins. Save yourself the trouble," said the hag, now really alarmed. "I will make terms with you." "Terms indeed," growled the Resurrection Man. "Well, what have you to say? If I tell you everything, you can get what money you choose out of Catherine," continued the old woman, "and I shall not receive a penny. Serve you right for having tried to gammon me." "That will be very hard indeed," added the old hag. "After all, when you go to Catherine Wilmot and reveal to her the secrets I communicate to you, she will ask you for proofs." "Proofs," repeated the old woman with a cunning leer, "and you will have no proofs to give her." "Then you shall write out the whole history and sign it," said Tidkins, "and my friend Banks will witness it." "Yes," observed the undertaker, smoothing his limp cravat ends. "Edward Banks of Globe Lane, Globetown, furnisher of funerals on new and economic principles. Good deal coffin, 8 shillings, and—" "Hold your nonsense, Ned," cried Tidkins. Then, addressing himself again to the old woman, he said, "Well, don't you think that scheme would answer the purpose?" Very likely," exclaimed the hag, "but proofs, written proofs, would not be bad companions to the statement which you wish me to draw up." "And you have such written proofs?" demanded Tidkins eagerly. "I have," was the reply. "Where are they?" "Where you cannot discover them, concealed at my own abode. No one could find them, even if they pulled the house down, except myself." And again the hag leered cunningly. "This only makes the matter more important," mused the Resurrection Man, now hesitating between his avarice and his desire to possess such important testimony. "Well," he continued after a pause, "to use your own words, we will make terms. I tell you what I'll do. Write out your history of the whole business in full, mind, and I will give you 10 guineas down. At night, me and Banks will take you home, to your own place, where you shall give me up the written proofs you talk of, and I will give you another 10 guineas. How's that for a bargain?" "Alack, it must be," said the hag, "but why not let me go home to write out the history?" "I am not quite such a fool," returned Tidkins, "and mind you, do not attempt to deceive me with any inventions, for I shall deuced soon be able to tell whether your history tallies with all I overheard you and Catherine say together on this subject. Besides, the written proofs must be forthcoming, and they too must fully corroborate all you state. Fail in any one of these conditions, and I'll cut your throat from ear to ear. Do you agree?" "I do," answered the hag. "Give me paper and pens." Tidkins departed to fetch writing materials, food, and some strong liquor and oil for the woman's lamp. In 5 minutes he returned, and placing those articles upon the table, said, "When will your task be completed?" "It will take me some hours," returned the hag, "for I have much to think of, much to write," and she heaved a deep sigh. "This evening I will visit you again," said the Resurrection Man. He and Banks then fastened the huge door upon the old woman and left the subterranean. When they reached the street, the undertaker departed in the direction of his own house, and the Resurrection Man ascended to his apartment on the 1st floor. Okay, that's the end of the chapter. So she's going to reveal Catherine's history. They're going back to her house to find the proofs of it. I have a feeling she has something up her sleeve. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes. I'm hopeful this means we're going to find out the history of Catherine Wilmot and how she's connected to Richard, because she has to be. There's no way the writers would pick that same surname and be like, but they're not connected. Okay, see you for the next one.